Hey everybody, my name is Daryl Akins of the Anglers All Crew, and we're down in the Fly Studios. Today we're going to do a jig bugger. And the jig bugger is going to give you some variance between some deep water in the still water side of the game, as well as some moving water in the rivers. So smallies and carp, look out. Let's get tying. Let's say you have a jig hook. More in particular, the B55X Jig 60 Heavy from Umpqua's X Series, which is just a bomb carp hook I'm finding. So I'm going to be using some 50 Denier Nano Silk in olive. It's a little slippery, so you could certainly do a little bit of adhesive on there or just do a little pinch wrap and then go over the Fed wraps. And look at that, it's not going anywhere. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a play here. We're going to make a move on a fly that everybody knows and everybody wants to fish or has fished. And that's the tried and true woolly bugger. And we're gonna do this in the theme of a thin mint, because those colors do seem to just flat out rock. So we're gonna do a tail and marabou. We're gonna do two pieces of marabou that are separate. So we got the top of one feather here, and I'm gonna use the wigglies here as my other layer of vibration and color. What I'm looking to do is to lie a base on the bottom of the brown, and I'm gonna turn over and have the olive laying on the brown. So the brown will give us the base of what our feathers are gonna lay from the underside. So I go, get this out of here, I go the body and a half on my distance of that bugger tail. And again, instead of doing just a bunch of brown on both the top and the bottom, I'm gonna cut the marabou proportions in half, since I have some other marabou going in on the other side. And we'll split the difference and make sure that all of our marabou gets handled in that manner. So instead of taking another feather and just putting it on top, I'm gonna have one feather giving a vibration and another feather giving a different vibration. So I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna grab all those little wavy wigglies at the bottom of that marabou feather, and we're gonna use this as the part that goes on top and lays in. And this is going to give us our two-tone the thin mint is so known for, and it's going to give us two different vibrations. So when you're tying in on a jig hook and you have it upside down, it's never fun to kind of come in this way and kind of stick yourself. We use thread tension in our favor here. So anything we wrap this way is going to push and roll over the hook shank, and we just deal with that because that's what happens when you tie with thread tension. So we're going to start this on the inside of the hook shank, and we're going to roll this over onto the actual hook where we want it. So I'm going to do a loose wrap and have that tension grab that marabou. I'm going to do 3 wraps. We're going to trim, and now I'm going to go ahead and take a bodkin and make sure before I start cinching down with tight wraps that I'm happy with the position of that marabou. So once I get things kind of split, I like the way that's sitting. It's pretty even. I'm not worried about this here. We can clean that up. I'm more worried about where we're cinched and how we've now laid our feathers out. So as long as everything's good back here, we can always deal with this in just a second. That's just some marabou. So what I'm looking to do now is do my jam wraps underneath, which we now have. I'm going to go ahead and just trim out some of this marabou. And again, I don't want to take it all out. I want to make sure that I can use some of that to kind of build in a taper. So I'm going to leave some at the front end for me. And then use that as a taper. So I'm going to come underneath. And I'm going to go ahead and just wrap those with loose wraps, loose spiral wraps, and then come back with my tight wraps. Now there's not much in the way of balance or engineering when you've got almost a 5 mil tungsten bead up at the head. So this bad boy is going to turn over and get down. We're just looking to keep a svelte body, so we've got a proportion difference. We've got something kind of splayed in the back, and then we get really narrow and thin in the body, and then we'll do a hackle feather in the front. And we're looking for a disparity in the front and the back of that fly where we almost have like a nymphy narrow body in the middle. So we got some brown, we have some olive. We have that olive right over the top there to kind of help cradle the brown marabou. Now we're going to tie in a body material. I can dig me some flat braid. I like it in root beer because it actually gets a little darker in the water. So it kind of comes across as more of the root than the beer. I'll be here all week. Try the Corona midges. So we're going to tie this in back to where we just ended our marabou. We're going to go back up, some nice tight wraps, nice organized body and taper. Throw a half hitch in there for a little over engineering just in case something happens. We're covered on that end, and now we're just going to wrap up. If you have a rotary vise and you want to kind of knock yourself out and spin them, you can. For some reason, I don't really do too much of the rotary vise. However, to keep my hands out of your grill and from being up in your chili in this video, I'm going to use the rotary. So I'm going to allow, oh, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 mil of space up in the front. A little less than a full, look at that. Did you see what just happened there? Uh-huh. Look at that, look at that. I saved it. I trimmed too close and did my wraps down. So we're going to finish up with a little hackle feather action. So we're going to reinforce the Thin Mint motif, if you will. I've got an olive and a barred hen hackle feather. So we're going to tie in on the back side of that 5 mil and then wrap our hackle feathers over that. And the reason I have that much space is because we're doing 2 feathers, and believe it or not, 2 feathers take up a ton of room, if you can believe that. So I'm going to pull that back over. Now, you see how I have this on the inside here? I'm going to go on that far side of my tag end, and then I'm going to pull both of my hackle feathers up and go on that side. And what I've done is now I've cinched down on that side of the feather, I've cinched down in the center of the feather, and I've cinched down on the opposite side of the feather. And by giving myself 3 points to grab this feather, it's really going to want to like stay where I'm asking it to stay when we tie it in now. And I'm going to wrap both of those together and forward. And you can see that having that extra space once you start wrapping them is pretty helpful. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. A little on this, a little on that side. We want to make sure we're grabbing from both sides of that feather. If we capture from one side, we do leave ourselves open for a goal through the 5-hole. And we don't want 5-hole goals. Not in the playoffs, at least, right? So I give all my hackle feathers the business. I want to make sure that we're not preening water off of these. I want to make sure that when I go through, all of these feathers have an independent goal now. If I keep this feather the way it was meant to be, nice and clean and preen, I have a feather right here, you'll see, you know, like this feather is going to just push water and kind of bead up. If you actually put a drop of water, it would bead and then roll right off. However, if I take this feather and smudge all the feathers together, now all of a sudden they're not going to work the way they were supposed to work before, right? They're going to vibrate and do something really, really different. What I've done here is I've touch dub. Touch dub is pretty simple. You want a really sticky wax, and you're going to touch to where you can see but not blob or glob any of your wax. That's a little heavy. I want to kind of get an idea to show you how far to go and then back off if you had to. So if I had this and I wanted to back off, you can kind of take your touch dub and kind of pick up what you don't want and then retouch the little smaller pieces. There's no perfect way. You're going to have times where it seems like you're getting glops everywhere. That's just tying. You want to go ahead and get a nice even amount of touch dub wax so it can pick up all your guard hairs. Get a little piece of dubbing. You don't need a big chunk because once you start touch dubbing with dubbing, you're going to start losing the life of the dubbing and you probably won't be roping it. Once I start touch dubbing with this goes into a separate bag and it gets touch dubbed until it's done. Once all the guard hair and the life is out of it, you can use it however you wish. So nice fluffy guard hairs, right? All it's looking to do is touch something sticky and do its job. So we're going to touch it down here. This does not take a ton. All we're really looking to do is add a micro vibration onto our thread and cover up our work. So the last few wraps, you see how I'm kind of up and wrapping in front? And we kind of have that little collar. We're going to kind of push water and vibrate into that hackle feather. Love that kind of stuff. Love, 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 love. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit this bad boy with a few wraps, a few whips here. If you wanted to, and again, it's not always a necessary evil with me because I do love my technique on heads. But look at that, an inch of zap, that's such a little bit. wrap this around where now what you have is all that GSP or all your thread laid on top of each other, bonding with that little bit of glue, and then you do your dry wraps on top. And what you've done is you've now laid down a base of whip finishes, then a little bit of zap on top of it, and then whip finishes there. So you just made your front of your fly bulletproof, and that's really what the goal is. So I'll go back over. I want to make sure that I'm happy with all of my hackle feathers being roughed up enough, make sure that I gave them the business. And this is going to be a pretty standard run-of-the-mill jig bugger in a motif of a thin mint, where we're going to have a little bit of brown, a little bit of olive. And I do like the root beer in the center. It breaks up and gives us a little bit of flash that's not always visible, but kind of shines through our hackle feather montage in the front. So there you go. This is a great river fly. Like I said before, you can lighten up and change your head and make it a still water. But when the flows are up and they're grinding on your local river and you're looking to get a fly down like James Brown, this jig bugger will do the trick.